is going to be on JavaScript. This is way past the intro. This is the second class in the first class we had. In the first class we were able to learn the overview of JavaScript, how we can make it kind of fun to work with. And one of the very first thing that you need to understand about JavaScript is that it controls what you can see on the user interface. It's responsible for manipulating the interface to what it is you want to see. So like our example last week, we were able to manipulate this bulb to on and off. The list of what you can do with JavaScript, you could do quite a lot, sophisticated things like doing gaming. I'll just do a quick recap of what we do last week, so that because it's very important that we understand where we are and where we are going from here. How do you bring JavaScript into your system? By using a script tag. We talked about this. This is where we write our code inside the scripts. Another alternative is to use the source, so get our code outside here, to use it from here. This way makes it cleaner. We also talked about how we can implement the JavaScript inline. You just use it directly. So that's another way. So what we are doing now is a recap. So we want to go back and continue from where we stopped. Statements. Or before we go into statements, I assume we know what programming is all about. Programming is telling the system what you want to do, what you want the system to do for you. You want to make it interactive. You want to make a declaration for something to happen. That's all what programming is all about. And when you talk about JavaScript is using the event of the user to interact. You'll be working on click events most of the time. So when I mean click event, is action taken by the user. So you'll be using a lot of events. So this is just one of it. Click events. There's mouse over. There's key down. There's a lot of events that the user will interact with that will make the system do something. And there are some events that just happen automatically, maybe when the document loads for the first time. So you should be conscious of every event available on the browser, and that way you can harness the power of JavaScript and use it to do what you need to achieve. Okay, I will undo what we've done. I'll just create a new page right now. So let's do 5 so that we will start up in a fresh start. So we'll have a fresh start kind of. Okay, so we have this. We'll put our body so that we can display content. Okay, what we want to talk about now is what are called statements. How do you make statements? Program is a line of code. Programming is writing line of code and having the system to execute it for you. So example is, look at line 3. This is a statement. You understand it, the system understands it, and it executes, it does something. So how do you write statements? What are the guidelines of a statement? So you could write an assignment statement. An assignment statement is when you are carrying a value into a variable. So the question is, what is a variable? A variable is something that holds information. When you are working with programming, you always use variable. Variable is what you use to hold information around the system across the platform. So let me give you what I mean by variable. So this one that we did, this value here is as an information. On.give is an information that you've assigned to this object. So it's possible that we can keep this somewhere else instead of just assigning it this way. So let's create an assignment statement and say let on, that's on button, on equals to, we're assigning it to a string. So this is a string. Now what the statement for number 3 now, this is called a declaration statement. So what I'm doing now is I'm making use of a variable, which is the on, and I'm assigning it to another entity. In this case, document.getElement in bracket Bob. So what I've done now is I've moved variable around. I've moved this one around and I've passed it here as opposed to what we've done. So this, what we've called here, is a declaration statement. You use it to declare a variable. By the time we go further in the system, you will see us using declaration statements, because before you can use anything, you need to declare it. So let's move on. You also have list of instructions you can give the program on what you should do, and that's example of what we've done so far. Notice the next thing we have is semicolons. Semicolons are a way to terminate a line, meaning you are done with the statement you are making. So when you add semicolon, it terminates what you are doing. It ends at what you are doing. That's what that semicolon is. However, if you don't add that semicolon, it's not really how will I put it? It's not really that important, because JavaScript has become so complex or become so advanced that you can actually remove the semicolon. But just to be safe, you can always add the semicolon. Even if I save it automatically, our prettier automatically add that semicolon for us. So I remove all the semicolon and I try to save it. The system adds all the semicolon part. It's part of JavaScript. You have to add the semicolon at the end of your statement to terminate what it is you are doing. So another thing you need to notice is how to use the spaces. We've not started programming. I'm just giving you the guideline. Because these guidelines are important for you to know, so that by the time you are programming, you follow those guidelines to what you need to do. Another thing I want to show you is use of space. So if I remove this and I make this like this, it's still okay like this, but it is less readable. You can't read this like this. It's less readable this way. So what you can do, even though it's accepted, when we save, it saves it for us as putting space. But if you are not using all this smart editor, you will fall into that trap of using something like this, and this can be so difficult to read. The idea of writing code is that such that you can come back and maintain it. You were mentioning something the other time that what are the role of a front-end developer. As a front-end developer, what you do most of the time is maintaining your own code. So if you get to see your code and you can't read it, there will be a problem maintaining those code. Okay, the next thing we have is line break. Line break is when you go to the next line, to do another line of code. So you can break your line in between what you are doing. Like you have this, you can break the line like this, and it's still acceptable. But as I've said, it's less readable. It's not readable this way. So everything is better to have on this line. And it's always good for you to not make your code too long. You will see the example when you write this is already long, but there are more longer stuffs. So you see example when we go into that part. The next thing you will see in the syntax of JavaScript is code brackets or code blocks. Code blocks are a way to segment your codes that you've written. For example, this function is in this code block, and this other function is in this code block. I will introduce another code now, which is our if statement, which we are not there yet. And if statement also have its code block. What that means is that this is everything within this block is for the if statement. So we also have other statements that have their code blocks. So it's very important to understand what code block is all about. It's the fact that code can be wrapped in a block, in a group, and that group, the execution will be handled within that group. Lastly is the keywords. There are words in the system that are unique that you cannot use apart from what is being designated for. Example is let. So you can't say a variable is called let. So for example, if I say let equal to go, for example, you can't use the let keyword again. Let keyword is now taken by JavaScript, so you can use it for your own consumption. So there are a lot of keywords that you can use, and not really a lot, there are just few of them. You can use if, constant, switch, for, function. You can't use function again now because function is already used, so you can't say let function equal to. So whatever you want to name, you have to be more creative and give it a name that is, very intuitive to what you are doing. So for me, I just use underscore to be safe, so it won't complain, because that's why I didn't use on as well. I think on is also a keyword. Okay, on is not a keyword because it's not complaining, but just not to fall into that trap, I use underscore, when I'm naming my functions or my variables. So the next thing we have is, let's write an actual code and see. Let's start with an actual code and see how it works. So what I'm going to do, I want to use the console because it will be less effective using this for our JavaScript. So the last time we made use of console, right? Let's open our console and see. Let's try some JavaScript on our console. So this is our console environment, and what it does is step. So from here, we already learned what a let is. Let is a way to tell the scripting language that you're about to declare a variable. So if I say let x, what are we doing? We are just setting a variable. And let me go to the editor so that it can be seen clearly. Let x is equal to, let's say 5, and say let y is equal to 6. Then let's now say the summation of both. Let the sum of both equal to y plus x, or x plus y. Then let's print out console.log, or let's use alert so that we can see it. Print out, what are we printing out now? We are printing out sum of both. So let's run this and see what we have. For this, we are on the page 5. So did you notice that we have 11? So this is we just wrote a program now. We just wrote a program. Now let's make it very interesting. So what I've just demoed to you is how to use a let, a variable, to declare something, to hold information. This variable, this x is 5 and y is 6. When we sum 5 and 6 together, it saves it in a variable and it gives us what we have as that alert. So that's what we have there. And we can even create a mini calculator with this effect. So that's what we want to do now. Let's create a mini calculator just to show you how these things work. So I'm going to use Bootstrap so that we'll be making use of. I want to put all of these things in your face so that you can be seeing Bootstrap and everything working hand in hand. We can be using our styling and be using everything. That way, we are not just learning JavaScript alone. We are using that to revise our HTML knowledge and also carrying on with our CSS knowledge that we have. So what I want to do is I want to create a calculator, but not really a big calculator, just a small one for now. So I want our calculator to have 2 inputs and a button so that we can have our equal sign. 2 inputs, meaning we'll have left side and right side, then equal to our value. There will be a button to do that. So let's go ahead and do, let's say we have a row, then we have, so that at the bottom, I'm using it, so that at the bottom we can then have our answer. let's see what we have. Let's see the interface. Okay, so this is what I've come up with. We have our, so let me bring it to the center. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so what we want to do is when we add let me do margin top. So this button needs to be bigger. I think that's font control. It's not working. So we have BTN primary. Okay. So we can then do margin bottom 1. Okay, so the intention is that we want to be able to do 4, 5 equal to, then we need to put somewhere. Let's make the equal sign here on the right hand side. We already have this one. I want to put this one to, okay, let's just make it sure at the bottom, since we have the whole bottom not being used. Then I'll put it here. I can do margin bottom 5. Then I'll call this, let me do it H1. I'll call it, by default it can be 0. Then I'll call it our answer, ANS. So let's make it stay in the middle. So let's start programming. Let's program this. Let's program text box 1 plus box 2. When we click equal to, it should plus. So later we'll make it complex. So we'll turn this in the future. The idea is that to turn this into a full-blown calculator. That is the idea. So I'm working my way gradually.
I would like to add something.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, now we have the box. We are inputting input 1 and input 2 and the submit button.
Yeah.
What about the operation button?
Yeah, we can
how will the code know that, okay, is addition we are doing, is multiplication?
So that's what I'm about to, we're getting there. So what I want to do is, I don't want to finish the program without showing you the steps. I don't want to jump to, so we want to first assume that it's plus. Then after we assume we do the plus, I will now put the operation out as a variable so that it's something that can be changed. So first of all, let's do with 2 inputs, right, that we have, that is easy. Like, so later I will now put the operation out. I don't want to put the operation out yet. Okay, so let's start. Now, let's go to the coding environment where we will write. We just finished our HTML and CSS. So let's start scripting. We put our script this way. What we are doing now is, we already know the ID of 1 and 2. The next thing now is for us to, once we have them, we click equal to. So on clicking on this, that's when the event should happen. We already know how to activate on click events. How is that done? Is by saying on click. On click. When we say on click, anything that it calls next is a function. You can write your whole JavaScript here, but of course, to make it cleaner, we call a function and we just say add up. We're going to create that function ourselves. We create the function called add up. So that's what we want to do now. I want to create a function called add up. So we'll come here on our scripting section and write our function add up. So function add up. In our add up function, we can write our code. By not writing, I just want to take it gradually. So I want to write just a dummy information. So if I do this, it's showing you that it's calling line 39. When we click, it went up to activate add up, and then the function comes here and brought out this. But that's not the intention. The intention is to add whatever that is in box 1 plus whatever that is in box 2. That's the intention. Okay, how do we get the value inside box 1? How do we get it? I'm about to set a variable. I will say let box 1. I'm declaring a variable now, the whatever value is inside here. So I will do our document dot get element by ID. We already know the ID, which is this one, input 1. You can call it anything. Input 1. To get the content here, we use .value, and I'll tell you why that is so. Because the value is the attribute that determines the content of an input box. So if you say by default is 0, note that is empty now. If you say this one is 0, and you come in here, you also say this one by default it should be 1. This is HTML, by the way. And then if you refresh this page, let me check ID value input. So by default, that's what this one is there for, that the value should be 0. That's why it's 0. If you say the value should be 10 by default, it will save to 10. So that's just to show you. Then if you then want to collect the value, you want to now put it inside box. That's what you're trying to do. So this is an assignment statement, how to catch variable. So I'm catching this variable, what is in this text box, I'm storing it inside a variable called box 1. All the variable naming and everything, you can be calling it anything that you like, but it should be related to what you're doing so that you can easily relate with what you're doing. So I'm putting this in box 1. So the next one, I'm putting it in box 2. I just duplicate what I have and I put it in box 2. Then my answer, I also put another variable called let's answer is equal to box 1 plus box 2, right? Then of course that we want to display our results here. So before we display our result, let's see if our code is even working. So let's print out our code using the alert function. So what are we printing out? The execution of 1 and 2. We put it out here. So if we try and execute this, it should be showing us 1. Obviously it should show us 1, but I will explain that in a moment. Okay, we'll explain that in a moment. So the reason why it's giving us 1 and not 2 is because it's seeing each and every one of these as a string. A string is not a number. That takes me to data type. So there are various forms of data type. I'll just tell you 2 now. We'll explain the rest later. A string and number. Number is 1, 2, 3, while a string is a text. So a number can also be a string, but if you tell it that a number is a string, it won't carry on addition operation. So we then need to convert this thing here that is a string to number. We'll get to the conversion later. Let's move on. Okay, so we have I was talking about alerting. Okay, let's even do the conversion now. So one of the way to convert is by saying that is a number. There's a keyword that says number, and what this does is that it converts anything inside to a number. It's a function. It's a JavaScript function that converts everything that it sees to a number. So whatever that is inside this box, convert it to number. Whatever that is inside this box, convert it to number. Add it together, we should now have 2. So let's try it now before we do the assignment. So you can see that it's working now. It's now 2. Let's move on. So we've introduced a function. This is how to use a function while we are still working with what we're working with. Let's move on to the next thing. By the way, you have so many functions, and these functions are supposed to help you to make your life, easy. So we just touched our first function now, which is number, and the idea is to convert any value that you put into it into a number. You can put anything to it to convert it to a number for you, if it's convertible. If it's not, it's going to display null or error. Now the next thing is for us to assign this answer to where? Here in our code. So how do you do that? We already did that in our first lesson. So we'll do document dot get element by ID, and we have our value here. What's the name of the ID? ANS. Then to set the content of that element, the content of the element mentioned is by using inner HTML. Then whatever you want to assign to it, you assign to it. This is what we want to assign to it. The answer is what we want to assign to it. So let's give it a try. So if you do this, you're having your 2. If you do 3, you have your 14. If you do 14, you have this. So you've created a simple calculator that just does plus. So I would like you to take this in, then I will show you how you can then do operator, specifying your own operator. So just take a minute to understand what I just did here. I didn't do anything special. I just carry this one, plus it together, and I have this. Okay, so let's see how we can bring in our operator. Okay, so this bringing our operator will make things a little bit complex, but we're going to do it anyway. That way it buttresses, it explain more. It has a lot to do with our setting of variable, because now you aren't asking yourself, can't I just put everything in one? Why do I need to declare variable? Why do I need to put something in a variable? That will be your first question. Why do you need to put something in a variable? The reason is because you can't be using the value directly forever. At some point you will need to put in a variable so that you can use it somewhere else. So this code itself, I can easily write it without using a variable easily, but that's not what we want to show now. We want to be able to bring out the operator. Okay, let me redesign this interface to form a calculator, and let's go back to our CSS. Let me say this guy is a card. Let me bring a card. Add our bootstrap. So I'm about to create something that looks like a calculator. Okay. Let's just have the plus here so that we don't waste time in trying to create a fancy calculator. Let's have the plus here. So I just duplicated the first thing. So the plus, I'll call it red, or let's make the plus primary. Okay, we want to make operator. We want operator to be independent. Okay, let me do that. So this will be, we're not calling any events yet. This is very good to explain more things. This is very good. I would have loved us to do a proper calculator. So let's design something. Okay, let's go with this first before we do the calculator that is in my mind. Let's go with this first, so that it will help us to prepare what we have. Okay, so we already have this interface. When we do this, a plus by default. A plus is what we have by default. What I want to explain to you is the power of variable and why it is important. How do you tell the system that use plus? We're assuming there are minus. Or in fact, let me add minus to it so that it will proper buttress our points. Let me add minus to it, because if it's just plus, you will not get the dynamism of what we're about to do. So we have plus, minus, and equal to. Use one of these, to operate. And the way programming works is you need to first work it in your brain first and translate it, because what we're about to do now is brain work. You have to think about it. It's logical. If you don't think about it, you can't program it. So I'm going to rationale the solution to you, and then you then see how we're going to equate it. First of all, we need to have a global variable that says the operation that holds our operation, and anytime I click on plus, that global variable will be changed from either nothing to plus, so that when I now click equal to, it will know that the global variable is a plus or global operator. Let me use the word global operator. Let me repeat that again. By default, if you did not set the global operator, equal sign should not work. So if you click either plus or minus, the system is going to set a global variable, meaning when you now click equal to, it's going to use that global variable to do the addition or subtraction. So let's see how that can play out. How do we set global variable? Global variable is set outside your function. It's going to sit on its own, and we're going to call it operation. By default, we can say let operation, I'll just say let it be blank. I don't want to introduce some things yet, like null and the rest. I don't want to introduce so many data things at the same time. So by default, let it be blank, so that if you click equal to, when it is blank, it should not do anything. So we've not put that condition on the button. So we want to go and put that condition on the button. Where is the condition going to be? The condition is going to be here. Because at this point, line 50, what is it doing? Is accepting the value of input, the first input. Line 2, accepting the value. Line 3 is when it's doing the execution. So don't do the execution. Check the operation first before you do the execution. So how do we check? We introduce our if condition. So let's write if syntax so that you see how it works. We do our if, in the brackets we write a condition. So our condition is that our operation should not be blank. So you do if operation, spelling is wrong, operation. If operation is not equal to empty. That's if operation is not equal to empty. So hold that thought there. I'm going to explain what I just did. So we have a way to compare variable, or to compare variable, or to compare data. So you have equal to. This means it is equal. Then you have equal to or greater than. So you have not equal to, which is like this, rather, not equal to. So you have equivalent, like this, meaning in value, in depth, and in phase, everything is equivalent. So what we're looking at now is not equal to. So ignore all these other ones. We'll get there in due time. What I'm just showing you is the block for if condition. So we are saying we want to check operation. Is operation set at all? If it's not set, don't do anything. It's only when it's set that you should execute something. So this block of code we execute only if there is operation. So we're going to carry all of this and put inside that block. Just to now show you if it's working or not, is to test it. If I click it, notice that nothing is going on here. It's saying 0. Even though we know that 13 and 14 are supposed to, 13 and 4 are supposed to execute, it's not working because it has a condition tied to it that it will work. So let me now manually put plus here. Manually, I'm putting plus here manually, and let's see if it will work. So if we put equal to, it's working. So what does this tell you? We've successfully, stylishly, I'll say stylishly, carry the operator, because we are still writing the operation manually here. We are still writing it manually here. We are still going to put this inside here. So we are still writing it manually here. So the way for us to put it is to, we're going to use another keyword to help us out with this. That keyword is called evaluate. And what that does is that you can have a string containing mathematical equation, and it's going to execute it for you. So that's the function, so you don't need to worry. So once you know those functions, it executes things for you. That's the way those functions work. But let me just try something else. Notice what it's giving us here. It's giving us what? A string combined together. It did this correctly, which is 13. It did this correctly, and it carried our plus and put it here for us and join it here. So, but it's not executing it. It's not turning it. It's not doing the maths. So if we go here and change, it's just dumping it for us. It's not doing the maths. So what is responsible? How can we make the math work? Is by doing the function I told you about, which is called eval, which is in full is called evaluation. So I'm going to come down here to line 54, not to make things too complex. I'm going to say, okay, this answer, evaluate it for me. And that's the eval function. So what am I evaluating? I'm evaluating the answer. And this time around, let's give it a try. So it looks to be working now. So if we do 1 and 1, it worked. 2 and 1, it worked. We've not started clicking this button yet, though, mind you. What we just did is to remove the variable, the global operation, out so that we can manually change it. So I want to change it to minus now to see if it will work. If I do this and I do 2 minus 1, it should give us 1. 2 minus 12, it should give us minus 10. So this code is working. How do you then change this operation automatically when you click on plus? When we click on plus, it should change. When we click on minus, it should change. So let's go back to the default, which is blank. Meaning if someone click on the equal sign, it shouldn't do anything if you've not automatically set the operator or the operation. So I think it's called operator. Let's do operator. So let's rename that to operator. Okay, how do you change this global function operator? We will do that on the event on click on plus. So we'll call it change operator event. So rather, the event is called on click. On click, what should happen? I will say change operator. So I will not decide what I want to change it to. I can just put the value here. I will say plus, because it's the plus button. No, we are working with minus button here. I will say minus. That minus is a variable, by the way. It's coming as a variable. Now, this change operator function, I just gave it a name. Nobody, how do I put it? Nobody, it's not a function in JavaScript. I just made it up now. So it's called change operator to. That's what I call it. So let's create that function to do that work for us. I will come here and write a brand new function and say function change operator. And I come here. In fact, to make things very easy, okay, let me just go ahead and continue. I do this. I come here. I override whatever is here, operator. right? And I change it to whatever I want. Let me not make things confusing. Let me say change operator to minus, so that I don't want to start introducing something complex to the function. So change it to minus. Then I put it to minus here. Then let's use that one to also change it to plus. So that we write for plus. We write both of them at the same time. Then we change the operator here to plus. Okay. Let me remove. Okay. So let's see, what else do we need to do? We've already written our change to minus here. Then we need to put our change to plus on the plus button. Let's go to the plus button and call this change it to plus. So fingers crossed, and let's see what happens. So if I click equal sign, it's not working as we've specified here. Now let's click on plus and see what happens. I've clicked plus. Let me click equal to. It's still not working. So let's go and check what is happening to our operator variable, because this is a global variable. It's supposed to be a global variable. So I'm going to show you what is happening. So this is the console. This is the console, and this tells you what is going on. And it's saying operation is not defined. I think we've used something in the system that was not there. But let's check just to make sure that we have everything set properly. Okay, it's complaining that operation is not defined. Did we use operation variable at some point? Oh, okay, we use operation here. We didn't change that to operator. Okay, so that is fixed. Let's check again. It's good for you to always come here to see if you have error, if your program doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. So let's try again. And this time we are watching this error part. We don't need this error is giving us. It's not related to what we're doing. So let's try it again. Equal sign, nothing is happening. Let's try to plus. We try plus. Let's now check. It's working. So let's do another example. We have 10 plus 12. Note that the plus is already clicked once. So once we click 12 once, it's okay. So if you do 13, it's working. So let's minus. If we click minus now, and then we click on equal to, it's doing the minus. So 1, 1, because minus was the last thing that was clicked, it will give you 0. So if you click plus and then you click equal to, it will click 2. So let me show you what is going on in the background, so you know. I didn't print out all the events, so it's good for me to print out all the events so that you see what's going on. Now what I want to do is, immediately you click on minus, I want to say something. I've not been using console.log. Console.log, so that you see what's happening in the console. I will just say, you can type in yourself. I'll also say changed operator, changed to minus, right? I will do this for plus, and then I'll come whenever it has done the answer, and then I'll put this in the console that my answer is, or I will do this something more interesting. I will say box 1, which is a variable. Notice what I do, I put plus in bracket, or rather I will say plus operator plus box 2 plus, I have a concatenation of string is equal to plus my answer. So let's have another graphical view of this again. This time around, we are looking at the console. The console we will look interesting this time around. So if I say plus, it say change operator to minus. Right, it was supposed to say plus. Okay, I think we didn't clean it up very well. Okay, so let's give it a try again. I have my split elements ready to go. So we have 1 and 1. If we say plus, the operator is changed to plus, and you do equal to, you say 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. And if we do 8, the operator is still plus. So if we say this, it will give us 1 plus 8 is equal to 9. If we then change the operator to minus, it's the operator change to minus. Then if we then do this, it will give us minus 7. So of course, this is not a perfect calculator. And the idea of doing this is to show you how deep you can go and what you can get with this. What I want to do now is, before we move on to the next thing, let me just do one more thing and then we'll move to the next thing. What I want to do is because you don't have to be, anytime if you're working with a real calculator just have one text box, by the way, has one. I want to go a little bit complex, a little bit complex. Can you guys handle a little bit complexity? So what I want to put here is that normally, in your calculator you have 1, 2s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 0, 9, 0. That's what you have in your real calculator, not something like this. So I want to quickly introduce something like that. Quickly. Let me introduce something like that. So what that means is that we'll not have box 1 and box 2. Instead, you have buttons 1 to 9, 0. I think that might be too advanced for you guys. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves, and just go gradually. So the next thing I want to do is that, and whenever you press equal to, it should say that you should choose your operator again. So what I want to do is, by default, your operator should be blank. Here we were correct to make the operator blank. What happens if the operator is blank? We need to say something to the user, and that's where the if condition comes in. The if condition is controlled by, we'll get to the if condition later, because what we're doing now is variable setting, and you saw the use of how we've been using the variable up and down. Imagine we're not using variable, we're using document.getElements.1.2, we'll be passing it all around. The idea of variable is that you can see how we reuse that variable inside the console, .log. We're using it all around, and the answer. You just get the element content, and then you use the variable to do whatever you want to do. You pass it around and you execute what you want to do with it. What I want to do now is, whatever we set, we need to change. We need to put something in such a way that when the operator is not set, alert the user. And that's where the if come in. When I say if the operator is empty, do this. But to make it clearer is that we use the other sign. If the operator is empty, do what is here. Else, execute the calculator code. Now I'm going to now say, if the operator is empty, say something to the user. Say select operator. Okay, let's give this a try. So if I refresh the page and I just say equal to, it says select operator. So and then that's what it does. If I now select operator, he executes. He knows that I've selected operator. It executes. If I refresh again, I try it. It said, where is the operator? You have select operator. So let me do one more thing. Every time you find your answer, it should clear the operator, so that every time you say equal to, it should set the operator back to empty, and that can be executed at the end of when you've finished running your computation here, which we can put here. Then we can say operator is equal to blank, meaning you've emptied it again. This gets set when you click plus or minus, but when you click equal to, you've emptied it. So let's give that a demo. We refresh. By default, of course, it's empty. Immediately you press plus and then you press equal to, it's empty again. So let's confirm that. I click it, it says select operator, but we just clicked it. Yes, because we told it that whenever you click on equal sign, you should clear the operator, meaning the user can select. The user needs to be selecting operator every time they want to do any computation. So I can do this and say, oh, okay, minus, and I do this. So if I click here again, it's going to tell me select operator. So you can see how you can tell the computer to do whatever you want in terms of based on the user requirements. So all these things depend on what the user wants or what your flow is defined is supposed to be. Understanding the variable scope is also important. So I'm coming to something now that we call variable scope. Variable scope allows you to variable scope is something that allows you to know when a variable will expire. Okay, it allows you to know when a variable will expire. Now let's look at the block of codes that we talked about, initially. This whole page, right? This whole page you're looking at. This variable expire when the page goes away. The first variable we deal with, that's the operator. Anytime I refresh this page, everything clears out from the system. Every time I refresh, everything clears out from the system. System is running low on resources. Let me clear some things. Okay. Every time you refresh your page, your variable gets refreshed all over again. And notice what happened in our code here. Within this page here, what happens is that your variable that you set inside the function dies in the function. This box cannot be accessible inside this function. Notice how we were able to use the operator everywhere. The reason we were able to use operator everywhere is because it's declared globally. It is declared what? Globally. So we have function scope. There are functions that's available throughout the entire website. Some are available throughout a function. Some are available throughout a block of code. What does that mean? We talked about block of code. A function is a block of code. If condition is a block of code. So there are functions that can actually, or variables that can exist within function block of code. Okay guys, do you guys have any question before we move on to the next thing? I need to talk about the addition, the plus, because it can be confusing. The use of the plus, because I know this number 63 is a long stuff here, number 63. It might be confusing. The plus operator or the plus keyword, anyone you can be called operator. The plus operator is used for two things. Very important. The plus operator is used for two things. Number one, is used to concatenate strings together. What is a string? A string is what's the definition of a string? Is a text, right? It's a text, group of text together. So look at what I did here. A string is used. Notice that box 1 is a number, right? Remember, box 1 is a number, or box 1 is actually a string plus another operator which is a string plus box 2 which is a string plus I put equal sign in a string plus answer, even though answer 2 is a string. Everything are all strings. If you use plus for them, all of them will be concatenated together, and that's why we have what we have in our console that you saw. So let me make use of another example in our console. So if I have Jack, here's my Jack, a Jack plus Sam, what do you expect? Do you see the results? You have Jack, Sam, and we use the plus operator. So, but if I have 4 plus 6, of course, it's going to do a math for me. But notice something, I want to do something very interesting. If I do 4, but this time around, look at what I did to the 4. I put the 4, I convert the 4 to a string. You convert to a string by putting a quote on top. Then I do 4 plus another 6. What does it give you? It gives you 46 or 46. We won't really say it's 46. Now, that is the first error we were getting the first time when we did 1 and 1 and it gave us 11. So in order for you to convert a number to a string to a number, you need to use the word number, which is what we did first. And if I do this, notice the 4 that we have here. Thank you for staying to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on bell notification in order to be notified when we release new videos. See you in the next one.